context to Matt Crocker, he spent before he became sporting director at Southampton, he was actually at the club from 2006 to 2013 as the academy manager. And apparently during that time, he oversaw the development of a couple names we might be familiar with: Gareth Bale, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Luke Shaw, James Ward-Prowse, who's still at the club doing good things as the captain. And then prior to these 3 years of being with the club, he, as Heath mentioned, he was with the English FA. He oversaw the U15, U17, and U20 English national teams on both the men and the women's side. So that answers a bit of your question there, Charlie. And during this time, it included England's men's wins at the U17 and U20 World Cups in 2017 and their European Championship that they won at the U19 level that same year. He has been, I guess, tagged with helping the FA establish the England DNA, the playing and coaching strategy within the national team setups, and has worked closely with Dan Ashworth and Gareth Southgate before he took over at Southampton. So, and then I guess there with Ralph Husenhuddle, they created this SFC playbook, Southampton FC playbook, which just talked about how any of the trainings that were going on at the first team, that was going to have to be, or that was going to be also applied and used at the lowest levels, or the youngest levels, excuse me. And this sounds similar in some ways to what Jurgen Klinsmann was promising when he took over with vertical integration. If we're playing in a 4-3-3 and our number 9 is being asked to do these 3 or 4 things, then our number 9 at the U15 level has got to be doing the same thing. And I remember after that was said that it just took a while to implement that type of vision, because you're just going to get a different collection of players that have different skill sets. And playing in a 4-3-3 might not be what's best for our U15s and the players that are at top in their age group at that time. A 4-4-2 might be more whatever. I'm just using that as an example. But I remember those were some of the pain points during that vertical integration type promise that Jurgen Klinsmann said he was going to deliver, and ultimately I don't think he did. But in fairness to him, I just think it's hard to say, all right, we're going to go identify these types of players, because what if you're handed a different type of player? So I'm very curious to see how Matt Crocker comes in and tries to implement that kind of SFC playbook to a national team setup. Obviously, he's got great experience with FAs. I think his vision and model that he's already created, both at club and country level, looks pretty impressive. That's where I think we're going to gain a lot of experience.
What looks impressive, Jimmy? What looks impressive?
They've had success. You're asking for trophies. The guys won a U17, a U20 World Cup, and a U19 European Championship with the youth. So you're asking for trophies. This guy's got it, but it's in the youth level. It doesn't mean it's translated to the national or to the full team. I also will add that with Southampton, if I get a little cynical, they're the worst team in the Premier League. And his fingerprints are on that. Now, I know that Southampton changed ownership about 1.5 years ago, and he'd already mentioned he was going to be done at the end of the season back in December. And so it was already part of the transition. Now, Jesse Marsch also had mentioned that Southampton's still trying to figure things out, and that's why he didn't want to take the job immediately after being let go from Leeds. So there's a lot there to
there's a lot there. There's a lot there, Jimmy. And that's why I think when I look at this, what part of you goes, yes, I'm so hyped. maybe the only part of the equation is that they finally took that step of hiring someone. And I like that it's outside of that US known commodity in terms of whether they've been involved as a player or coach, whatever it is, outside of that vision. So you have a different vantage point when looking at you at the program. So I'm all for it. I wanted a foreigner. I want higher standards. That's what I'm pushing is, let's not limit ourselves. Like people keep saying, Chuck is crazy. Why does he think we should be pushing for World Cup? Why wouldn't you? Do you want to just settle for getting out of the group or getting to the next round of knockouts, getting to the quarterfinals, and that's the goal? No. So why not push for the biggest signing? And I get there are a number of candidates that said, oh, I'm not leaving my job for this. Yeah, I'm not going to get paid enough. And it's not a job that I see myself leaving. So maybe that limits who you can go and get. I understand that. But in terms of me feeling underwhelmed, that's not going to change.
So Heath, I don't know if you're picking up what I'm picking up, but this guy hasn't even made one decision, and Charlie hates him. I don't know. I don't feel like
Look,
we're on the same.
The reality
Not
is that,
yet. I'm waiting for that. I said that. It depends on who he hires, what direction he goes in. Are we going to go with an American manager, or are we going to go with someone foreign, just like him, to manage this group?
Yeah.
I didn't even need the comments to trigger you this time, Chuck. I got you.
I'm already triggered. I came in triggered, Jimmy.
What I will say on this is we're looking through the lens of the men's national team. His job is not the men's national team.
I'm looking at the women's national team as well. So you know.
But I'm looking also at the youth national teams and the ambition of a unique candidate that has the youth experience. That's one thing at the youth experience. We can't expect our men's national team to win a World Cup if we aren't doing something at the youth level, right? You don't just skip and get up there and go, well, you know, we're ready. Like it's going to have this sort of connective tissue to we are pushing players through. And that's not on necessarily the development. That's going to come at the club level, but in the national teams to be competitive. And so I think he does bring at least a unique background. Maybe not the most exciting background, Charlie.
Or accomplished,
But it is a unique one in the fact that he comes in with some youth experience, boys and girls, men's and women's, and I think that's important. And then I think he also comes in with the idea of partially bringing all of that together. Some of it's gonna oh man, just the photo in that of
Life of Brie.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, I'm at least excited that we now get to judge somebody differently because we won't necessarily agree with them being the perfect candidate, but better than what could have been, and us just going like, oh man, like that person we know, like what's the upside here, right? Of somebody that maybe has been part of the system that feels like even as much underwhelming. So yeah.
So Chuck, just did Oguchi Onyewu, did Gooch end up getting interviewed for this?
Yes, he did. He did get interviewed for this. He was in the final rounds actually for this role. So I know he was among the people being considered, but I still think, and I've always thought that Gooch would be an incredible GM for this team, given his player experience, given that he speaks all these different languages, given that he's been a player in the youth system, he's been overseas playing in Champions League clubs. He has good relationships overseas. He knows how the youth system works over there, as well as just how to manage a sporting director, a manager from these different clubs to get clubs to players over here and having that relationship be symbiotic. So for me, Gooch would be an incredible hire as the GM, even though the sporting director would probably, you'd say, not enough experience at that level to manage this group and oversee the U.S. women's and men's program. Fine. But as a GM for the men's team, I think he is a top candidate if you're going to be hire an American. And did he? So
when he went into interview, and I'm absolutely buzzing, he got to the final rounds there. Did he interview for both positions then, or?
I'm not sure, but I know for sure the sporting director was in the role. And then it's
before you go there, do you think because I think there's this might not be the right, but there's like, we don't want to hire somebody from within, but we do want to hire somebody within because they know how the game has worked here. They've gone through the system. You know what I mean? It's kind of that weird thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder what you want. I mean, obviously we all know that Gooch would be excellent at the GM spot, to your point, but having Matt Crocker, a different voice that's kind of been outside of the bubble, let's call it the U.S. soccer bubble, could be a good thing. That's refreshing in a lot of different ways. Maybe we needed that balance, so it wasn't so like everybody's BFFs that can text each other when things aren't going well or whatever.
100%, Jimmy. So I like I said, I wanted somebody with a different perspective who has had success overseas to be the sporting director.
I see.
For both the men and women's program. Fact. That is what I wanted to see. So I'm happy they took that step. That's a big step to break away from the people that we've typically seen being rumored to take this role. So awesome. When you go with Matt Crocker, now who's going to be the GM and who's going to be the manager? What direction is he going to go in for the U.S. Men's National Team program? I would like to like the hire of him. I'd like to see someone who is not associated to those names, someone new. Gooch is someone who obviously knows everyone within U.S. Soccer, but he's not a part of that group. That's why he hasn't been hired for anything. He's had arguably one of the longest, most extensive and unique playing careers as an American, yet hasn't been hired by anyone because he's not in that group. But ultimately, I think we want to see someone who has a different viewpoint, who is not typically going to be associated to this role, not a typical name that we have, someone new who's going to push the boundaries and who has relationships. So I think Matt Crocker probably won't get that hire wrong as a GM, because whether it's someone he knows already overseas that would be perfect for the role, he's already worked under the English FA. That's probably not a worry at all. I'm really curious though where they go for the head coach for the U.S. men's.
Well, hold on before you go there though. I feel like you're gonna get back on the Matt Crocker train. Not that you're on it at any point, but you will if he hires Oguchi Onyewu as the general manager. Then it's all in on Matt Crocker. I'm gonna absolutely love that.